Alrighty, just move on to doing the fuel tank cap. Just need to make a few slight adjustments to the tank itself, just to get the circle hole at the top lined up properly. This is delete our turbo smooth and collapse it, just so we can use the border select and grow. And then we'll just scale this out a little bit. This looks a little better aligned. And just remember to name all your parts once you're done. Again, we're just going to move our reference image because the scale is a bit bodged. And then we'll just begin with a cylinder, 16 sides. Generally just start with 16 for most stuff, usually works out for pretty much everything. And then we'll just go from there really. So just convert to poly, delete the top and bottom caps, so we're just left with the outside. Add your turbo smooth and then just scale it in to make sure it fits. And just make sure it's in the right place in the perspective view. Basically going to make sure we have enough edges to support these little cuts into the cylindrical shape. So if you try and do like an 8-sided or something with not any many edges, then it's just not going to work, and countless people do it and it's just not ever going to work. So if you've got cuts into cylindrical shapes, just make sure you've got enough vertices to support it. Adding in our usual edge loops, just using ring connect and then chamfer for the double. As usual, very symmetrical shapes, and just delete half of it, use symmetry. Looking at the reference and what we have, it doesn't look like we have enough edges to support these details, so I believe we're just going to remove all our edge loops and get some more edges in there. Basically just delete the turbo smooth after we've removed all our edges. So basically just put the turbo smooth down to one iteration, and that basically keeps our cylindrical shape in the same place we had it, same alignment, and basically just adds twice the amount of geometry. So if we collapse that and then re-add the symmetry, then that should give us enough edges to work with. And again, it's always easier to do scales in when it's collapsed, so just collapse symmetry, do scale in, then you can just delete half and add the symmetry again. Because we're using quite a sharp corner, it's best to take the symmetry weld threshold down just to make sure the midline doesn't get welded at all. So we just select these polys, which after using the turbo smooth lines up pretty well, so don't have to do much adjustments. Basically just going to get rid of the middle rings, just makes things a little bit easier when doing the extrude. And just delete the inside faces. That basically gives us our rough shape, but it's not the sharp edges like the references, so we just need to sharpen these corners up a bit. So just add in some more loops and then just slide it with edge constraint on. And same again on that side. You notice a little bit of a pinch there, because the edge loops are too close together, so we'll just adjust that a bit. Occasionally you can just slide it around with the show and result on, you can actually get rid of it, just doing it by eye. But I think with this piece we'll just get rid of the extra edge loop, and that should resolve the issue. I was going to just copy this piece and clone it round, but you would actually have to need to mirror it to do it properly. I'm going to end up giving up and then just remaking it anyway. But just in case you do want to do it that way, then just make sure you set your angles up properly to the correct degrees, so it snaps to the edges properly. And then you just need to mirror it around. Yeah, it's not too much hassle just to cut it in again, so just do the same again really, just adding in the edge loops and then just cancel the edge loops at the end. Basically, once you've figured out the topology and whatnot and what you're actually going to do with your polys to make the shape, then the modeling's fairly quick. It's just kind of trying to work out how to go about making the shape. Just shift drag that down and then weld it up. That's pretty much those two little bits in. Then we'll just get on doing the cutting on the right side. I think this shape came off a little bit short, so it's just extending it a little bit here. There is ways you can make the sharp edges. You saw there's actually some creases on the inside there. With more geometry, you can actually cut those in without the creases. But in this case, you're not actually ever going to see inside that shape. So it's pretty much a waste of time to get rid of them. So just leave them in there, really. What we will do is just clean it up a little bit because it's not quite circular. So just use a circle spline as reference as usual, and then we'll just use end result just to do it by eye. Again, I was going to try and use what we've already done here to make the other cut in, but it's a slightly different shape. This actually goes in straight rather than an angle like the other two. So I think we'll just delete that and then do it on its own again. It's always worth trying to do just using stuff you've already made, save you doing it again, but if you can't, then there's no worries, just remaking it. Basically just use the cut tool to cut in the shape. Just turned on face constraints to make sure it keeps flush on the faces. Again, got that on the hotkey, same as edge constraint, just so I can flick it on whenever I need it. Now the cuts are in place, basically just need to work out some topology to make sure it's nice and clean and sharp edges and whatnot. We've already got loops in place here, so we might as well use them. Just add in all the loops and then just weld it up just to finish that bit off, and then we'll just keep on tweaking it till we get the right shape. Basically just poly pushing just to get the right edges in. Edge does actually need to be straight, so you can just slide that along. Makes things a bit easier. I just need to pull this middle edge up a bit. Now this is on a slope surface, so we're going to need to make some further adjustments, so don't just leave it how it is. Basically just pull them up a little bit till it looks like there's no pinching or whatnot. That looks about right, so we'll just roll with that. And we'll get on making the middle part of the cap. Again, just using a cylinder to begin with, 24 size this time. So we've got quite a few edges we need to put in. basically our base to start with, and then we just get on with the poly pushing to finish off the shape. And we just extrude that bit in. What you can do sometimes, if you just want to pull it in one direction, you can just put the extrude onto 0 and then just drag it out yourself. And when you extrude stuff in, make sure you delete the inside faces. Basically just use what edges we've got already just to act as our edge loops. Saves adding in any extra loops and sorting it all out later. We'll just use the make planar there just to make all the edges on a flat surface. So it saves lining them up by eye and making it wrong or whatever. That little part of the latch actually goes inwards, so we'll just need to shift drag and make some new edges in a sec. And just scale it flat. Again, we should use make planar to make these straight. basically going to need to make a indent around the middle, so it's usually easier to do the final shape before you start adding in all the edge loops. So just select all these border edges. Basically the reason we bridge that other part even though it's not supposed to be bridged, just so we can do this, so we can select the border and scale it in all together. Just make sure it makes the shape even on all sides instead of having to do it by eye. Not completely by eye, which just gives us a little bit of a leeway. Basically just dragging it across just to try and see if it's aligned. And once we've done our scaling, we can just use the symmetry again. Now that we don't need that bit, we can just delete it again. Basically just get on with finishing this piece up. Basically, next is an edge selection there. This is converted to vertex, so we can scale it, and then just tag weld it up. Again, if you want everything aligned, you can just use the align tool and then align it to the Z-axis or whichever one you're working on. That way you can make sure everything's aligned just by using that tool rather than doing it by eye. Obviously once you've set up like we did the first time, then you can just snap it straight away. And again, working with loops and whatnot, we can just add in all those edge loops nice and quick. And sometimes it's a little easier just to use the cut tool to add in the loops. So just do that this time. There's like hundreds of tools you can use to do the same thing, so just whatever comes to your mind at that time, whatever you're comfortable with. Instead of trying to like work with the topology we've already got, sometimes it's easier just to cut in what you actually want the final product to look like, and then just clean it up from there. So most of the time you will be able to find a solution doing that anyway. There we go, even after just adding in the edge loops we wanted, it ended up quadding it all up nicely anyway, so it's all good. Then we'll just finish up this bottom part. Just using the bridge there just to add in our loops. Easiest way really. And just the usual connect and then just target word up. And it's the same again on the side. Just make sure you weld as you go. And this last one's on our center line, so we'll just use the make planar to make it straight. And then just snap it to the 0. And now it's all nice and clean. Basically, this shape is kind of like a dome-shaped cap that goes on the top. But to model them slight curves in, as well as getting all these sharp edges and whatnot, would literally be a nightmare. You're working with hundreds of polys and it literally just tear you apart trying to do it, really. The quick trick I found is if you just use a few bends on top of the Turbo Smooth, because it adds afterwards. It uses all the extra topology of the Turbo Smooth to do the bending. So you can actually make some quite low poly stuff with a flat surface with sharp angles, but then afterwards you can add in the bends and make some nice like domed shapes, loads of cuts in and whatnot, without having to worry about all the hassle of pinching and that. I think you can get away with possibly doing it with 2. I usually used to do 4 bends just so you get one for like each 45-degree axis kind of thing. So you do the 2 crosses and then 2 diagonal. As long as you make sure you rotate them all in the right orientation. You see from the side view then you get a nice dome shape, but because we add it after the Turbo Smooths, there's none of the pinching. Using the bends will deform the shape very slightly, so basically just going to use a tiny little scale on the whole shape here just to try and fit it back into where we had it. And then we just adjust this shape very slightly. Again, by using show end result, we can see the effect of the bends while we're editing the very bottom end of the stack, which helps quite a lot. I know I think in Maya you can't do that. So that's a +1 for Max. That's pretty much our shape sorted. So we've got a nice cut-in details into a dome shape. And just make sure we name our pieces again once we've finished. And once you've done that, I think that's pretty much it. So I'll see you in the next bit.